Tales of Mithrym.
Skeleton Crew, read by Brendan Lorenzo, Part 9, Swash and Buckle. On the deck of the pirate ship, its ghastly crew stood rigid as they looked out at the roaring waves. The first mate, still holding the captain's coat, turned from shock to white-hot fury. With a roar, he turned back to the sailors, and in particular to Ducky and D'Urville, whom he rounded on and snarled at. "They killed her! They killed her!" he shouted. The pirates around him began to snarl too and ambled towards the sailors. "There's no coming back from that water grave! Get them! Kill them!" The blades of swords and knives glinted in the moonlight as the pirates rallied and rounded on the sailors. The first mate smiled an evil smile. "Don't let any of them get away! Re-grapple their ship! Don't let any of them flee!" Ducky and D'Urville looked uneasily at each other. What about Elvin? How were they going to— "Samson! Stop them!" The first mate's voice drew them back. "We'll look for him, and we'll find him," D'Urville nodded. "But first—" "Yeah," Ducky snarled. "First, we deal with this!" He drew himself up and roared at the undead creatures in front of him. Back on the other ship, Notley was pacing up and down, holding himself as tall as he could and waving his hands at the shouting sailors. "It's no good," he was shouting. "One cannot reason with pirates. And our cargo, dare I say, our mission, is far too valuable to allow such brigands as this to steal it." "What cargo?" Sam protested, running through a quick mental checklist of the grain and rum they had on board. "Let them have it! It's not worth our lives!" He rounded on the Chancellor. "How dare you, sir!" Notley exclaimed. "Take him to the brig!" He pointed a shaking finger at Sam. The sailors did not seem too keen to obey, though. "Blast it all!" he shouted as loud as he could, and with a flick of his wrist, sent a ball of white light erupting out and around them. "I am in charge of this ship. As the most senior member of His Majesty's government aboard, I demand you obey orders!" Still, the crew did not seem to move. However, after the brief display of magic, they were not too keen to get in the way of another spell, especially as the man seemed quite happy to throw them around just to prove a point. Notley grunted. "Very well then," he exclaimed, throwing his hands up. "Let me show you what a gentleman of Angmar can achieve." With that, he stormed up to the poop and grasped the ship's wheel hard. Coughing slightly from the effort and from the dust in the air, he wrenched at the wheel to turn hard away. Something caught, however. Whether it was the rapid water below or something in the mechanism, the wheel did not seem to want to turn. On the deck of the pirate ship, the sailors and Ducky and D'Urville were now surrounded. "We've got two problems," D'Urville said, turning to look back. "Even if we win the fight here, we need a way back to our own ship." Ducky punched a zombie hard in its face. It laughed as it brought up grey hands and cracked its jaw back into place. "One problem at a time," Ducky roared. "No, that's not good enough," D'Urville shouted. "Listen, hold them back, okay? Just hold them." She pointed to a handful of sailors. "You lot, follow my lead." Ducky kicked at a skeleton that was bearing down on them. Its knee bone crumpled and it fell to the ground, biting at the ankles of the sailors. "Where are you going?" Ducky looked puzzled. D'Urville was already gone. Ducky shrugged. "Hold him it is, then!" He looked around and grabbed at a length of wood nearby. "Grab on, lads!" he called to several of the sailors. They all did so. "Now, push!" Unsteadily at first, but with increasing unity as they all realized the plan, they ran forwards and rammed the board hard into the chests of the oncoming pirates. Many of the skeletons crumpled under the attack. Several of the zombies were knocked prone. One, though, grabbed hard onto the board, and as they were stopped, swung itself up and over and onto Ducky. Man and zombie fell to the deck in a scrambling brawl. Up the rigging, D'Urville and several of the sailors were watching the events below. "We need to get back before it's too late," D'Urville called to the others. "Everyone grab a knife and start cutting." They each did so. The ropes were thick but old. They held their tension well, but it did not take much to cut through them. As each was broken, the sailors began to hang free. A couple found it too hard to grip and slipped back down to the chaos below. D'Urville and two of the others, though, successfully held on and began to swing this way and that. High above them, the masts creaked. "Now!" D'Urville shouted as they approached the zenith of an arc. They all let go and for a moment seemed to hang in midair as they barreled towards the poop of their own ship. In that moment, several things happened all at once. The sailors landed hard on the deck of their ship, throwing up a cloud of dust that caught in the air and drifted away. D'Urville landed behind Notley, who turned on her and brought up his hand to cast a spell. Sam ran up from the main deck and grabbed Notley from behind. D'Urville, jumping up as quickly as she could, punched Notley hard in the face. The man fell to the deck with a soft thud. "Take him below," D'Urville called to Sam. "Aye, aye," he saluted. She grabbed the ship's wheel hard in both hands and steered it firmly back towards the pirate ship. It spun with ease and rounded sharply on the vessel. With a loud crash and the splintering of wood, the two ships collided. Back on the main deck of the pirate ship, Ducky and his opponent both fell hard to the floor. Ducky looked up, waiting for a blow to come, but it didn't. The zombie had stood up and was moving over to the first mate, who was laughing with an evil grin on his face. "Tie her off, lads," the first mate called. Many of the zombies and skeletons did so, jumping across with long lengths of rope that they tied fast between the two ships. Then Ducky saw something that chilled his blood. On the breeze there came a cloud of dust, which seemed to settle next to the first mate. At first it looked like a pile of sand, but then, slowly but surely, it formed into the shape of a human. Specks were blowing off it and returning in small gusts, but its shape remained quite sure. It smiled, and the first mate smiled back at it. "Good work, Samson."
Tales of Mithrym are written by Jimmy Clephane. Mithrym is a fantasy world built for the Dungeon Room role-playing game system. To find out more about the world of Mithrym, or to try out the game, go to www.mithrym.com.